This is Our Voices. I'm Mario Trimble. In order to be a place where everyone in our community feels valued and connected, we first have to ensure everyone believes they belong. Our Voices is a joint podcast production from the Colorado and Denver Bar Association's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Joint Steering Committee. Our Voices shines a light on the unique stories, experiences, and backgrounds of our member leaders so that we can help each other walk together.
Christine Hernandez is a partner at Hernandez and Associates, the largest immigration law firm in Colorado. Christine is a woman of many things. She is an attorney, a wife, a mother, and one of the people behind the new Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity requirement for continuing legal education credits in Colorado. In this podcast, she shares with us her life growing up in Virginia, how she learned to embrace her identity, navigating her way to and through law school, and, as luck would have it, finding her partner for work and in life. Listen in as she sits down with Courtney Holm and Nicole Speraza in this episode of Our Voices.
Thank you for joining us for Our Voices. My name is Nicole Speraza. I'm a solo practitioner in the Denver metro area practicing family law and civil litigation. And with me, I have a co-host.
My name is Courtney Holm. I'm an attorney and mediator in Edwards, Colorado, and I serve the mountain communities in civil litigation and criminal defense and mediation.
And with us today, we have in the studio Christine Hernandez. We are so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us and for taking the time out.
Of course. Thank you.
So as you might know, the format of the podcast is who you were, who you are, and who you will be. So tell us about growing up. Tell us about where you grew up, your upbringing, your family.
There's a lot to unpack there, just saying that. My mom came to the U.S. when she was 8 from Panama. So she grew up in Miami. She raised me and my brother Catholic. And then my dad is from Richmond, Virginia. He's adopted, but his adopted family is Jewish, and they're from Russia. So I had this very Southern / Panamanian / Jewish upbringing. It was pretty cool. I pretty much credit that to my current worldview and, being very open about diversity and equity and inclusion. It comes from, my household.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother. Yeah, he's in California. He's an engineer. He did not become a lawyer.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's great for him. There are no other lawyers in the family. I was the first.
Can you tell us a little bit about Richmond, Virginia?
There's not a huge Hispanic population. When I was growing up in Richmond, there just wasn't. If you were new to town and you spoke Spanish, you were told to find my mom so that she could help you navigate. There was no, Latin food aisle or Latin grocery stores. We actually went downtown to go find a guy who sold food out of his basement just to get Latin food. It just wasn't, Hispanic culture just didn't really exist. Because my dad grew up in Richmond, all of our family friends were Jewish. And so it was fun. I think about it. I've never been to a quinceañera, ever. I've been to, I can't tell you how many bar and bat mitzvahs in my life. Never a quinceañera. I would, go to temple with my friends on Friday, and on Sunday, drive downtown, what used to be called Monument Avenue, where all those statues used to be of Robert E. Lee and his friends, on our way to the cathedral. And it was, at the time, you didn't really realize the negativity and the power of those statues. It was just part of the history of the town. Looking back, it's really interesting to see that change happening. I'm shocked and such a change since I left. But I think it's because of that I did leave Richmond. I did not stay. I left as soon as I could after high school. I said, I got to get out of here.
Where did you go?
Ended up in Arizona. I had an incident in high school that pretty much cemented it. I said, I'm out of here. I want to say I was a sophomore. I was in a sociology class with some upperclassmen, and the guy who sat directly behind me was a senior. And the topic that day was immigration. And his comment was, well, all immigrants should go back from where they came from. And I whipped around. I don't even think I thought about what I was saying. I was like, excuse you? My mom's an immigrant. She's got a master's degree. My family's, successful. Can you say the same about yours? And turned back around. I was like, all right, well, that's how I feel about that. But what was disappointing was that the teacher had nothing to say. And at that point, I was like, I think I need to go somewhere where there's more diversity. And I don't think anybody would counsel their children to pick a university based on the number one criteria of their diverse student body. But that's exactly how I chose the University of Arizona. I was looking at diversity numbers.
So you're a wildcat.
Yes, I was. I spent 3 years out there. They actually won the championship my freshman year. I shouldn't date myself. I stopped from saying the year.
Well, I want to ask you a couple of questions about that incident that you just brought up. How old were you?
I think I was a sophomore.
In high school?
Yep, in high school.
I feel like that's a really formative time because you haven't quite found your voice yet. And it's not like you have a pamphlet of maturity to pull from about how to react to certain situations. And it sounds like that was just instinct for you. Was it just, how did you find your voice in that moment?
It was a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't even think about it. I was mad. But I don't know where it comes from, honestly. I'm pretty quiet, actually. I am not a rebel that is out there leading the charge. So it is actually kind of out of character. But I think it stems from ever since I was elementary school. Honestly, I remember being very proud that I could speak Spanish. I liked being different. I didn't want to be like everybody else. And so it was just, for me, being different was a positive. Having the family background that I have was a positive. It was never a negative. And maybe that was the first time somebody said something negative and I wasn't going to let that slide.
That's a lot of confidence, especially at such a young age. And what you're describing about being proud about being able to speak another language, that's not something that's commonplace either, because a lot of times kids are more drawn to fitting in. And usually that fitting in means not being different. So do you think that it was the family support that you had or your parents, or where did that come from?
I can't put a finger on it because my mom was definitely raised. Her generation was, you are to assimilate. You speak Spanish at home, but English outside the house. And she definitely was raised with that mindset. So it's not that we had conversations about it like I do now with my kids. It was just my inner superpower. I have no other explanation for it.
I think it's definitely a superpower, especially when it's that young. How about your brother? Did he also kind of, I guess, learn and play off of the strength that you had?
I think so. Yeah, since I'm the oldest, definitely. I actually kind of remember educating my parents on the fact that, we're Hispanic, Mom. And I remember having those conversations because I was filling out college applications, and that ethnicity started becoming a popular question. And so I was educating my own parents, like, actually we're Hispanic, right? And since my dad's adopted, we don't know his ethnicity. So I know my mom's 50% for sure. And so it was an education for my mom to be proud of the fact of where you come from. And so my younger brother was definitely influenced by that.
So you went to Arizona for college. What was it like for the diversity from Richmond, Virginia to what was very intentionally one of the most diverse places you could go for college?
It was awesome. It was. Besides, there was palm trees on campus and they had a pool at the rec center. I used to study poolside. That was fun. But I spent 3 years out there. I would say the only Anglo friends I had were the roommates I was assigned. I really immersed myself in the Native American culture. They actually had a fraternity and a sorority for Mexican Americans. I thought that was like amazing that there's enough individuals that could form organizations. African American, Mexican Americans, and Native Americans. That was my crew. And we had so much fun. It was great.
And University of Arizona is a fairly large campus. That's 40,000 people plus.
Yes, it's huge.
And so going from that smaller, maybe closed-minded, similar thinking area, and then going to a place where you're exposed to all these different backgrounds, and people must have come from all over the country to go to school there.
Yes. I met Californians for the first time. It was fun. No, I really loved it. And I only spent 3 years out there because I was having a little too much fun. All my classes were like sociology and Native American history and women's studies and mythology. And I took every opportunity I could because I was just so thirsty. It was awesome. But I was like, well, I was studying accounting and I got a C in accounting. And I said, I don't think anybody's going to hire an accountant that gets a C. So I started thinking about, well, what I really want to do. And I decided international business was what I was going to do. Marketing was interesting to me. So I ended up transferring to American University out in DC, which again is very diverse, a different diversity with international students. So I loved that.
And you had to buy a whole new wardrobe.
Comfortable walking shoes, yes. And jackets, and yes. But
so then when you were in DC area, that's a whole different dynamic. And was there something there that really ignited you towards your path that you're on now?
Yes, it was an accident. So I was heading into the 5th year of college going, okay, Christine, what are we going to do when we graduate? And the logical path is, business school, master's degree. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess it doesn't sound great, but the job market's not so good. And one day I just happened I saw a flyer, a documentary, get free pizza. I don't remember what club it was for. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? I have no idea why I did it. I never went to those events. I wasn't into clubs. And it was a documentary about asylum seekers. And it was particularly following one individual. She was a woman from an Eastern European country. I don't remember where. She had converted to Christianity and she was applying for asylum in the U.S. And they went through her process of doing it on her own. She was pro se. And so she ended up getting denied. They then refer you to the immigration judge because you're put in removal proceedings, at which point a pro bono attorney stepped in and said, wait a minute, these are just some minor inconsistencies. She answered these questions right. She gave you the name of her local bishop versus the bishop for the country. And there was just little tiny things like that caused her to be denied. And ultimately the judge granted her asylum. And it was a light bulb. I said, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be an immigration attorney. I have no idea what that means or how I do that, but I think I have to apply for law school and take an LSAT and, well, I'll figure it out. And so that's how I ended up in law school. Like I said, there's no attorneys in the family. When I told my parents I'm going to go to law school, they said, what? They, where did this come from exactly? Because like I said, I was very shy growing up. I do not have your stereotypical lawyer characteristics. I don't like public speaking. I don't like arguing. I wasn't on debate. Like I say stereotypical because we're not all like that. But that's what their response was when I said, I'm going to law school. They said, sure. No one said no, but they were very concerned that I wasn't going to make it.
What do you think they wanted you to do? Was there some other expectation that they'd had?
Nope. I think they just my mom had a master's in teaching. My father had a 2 years bachelor's degree. I don't think they really had a plan. They just wanted me to succeed. But I think that was kind of part of the problem, that I didn't have a plan up until I saw that documentary. So it's almost kind of good that no one was pushing me in any direction, since I might not have ended up here.
Well, did they understand once you explained to them the power of free pizza and what that can lead to?
They were still worried. They were still worried.
So you sat for the LSATs. Mm-hmm. You applied to law schools.
I actually had to go through it twice. I applied so late in the process that I didn't make it the first round. So I took a year off, went back to Arizona, worked for a law firm, Mr. Sid Walitsky. He was so much fun. I was his secretary. I would make his child support payments to his lovely ex-wife. I would make the deposits. I would help his daughter with her college essays. I had to type them up. I sat through depositions with his clients. I met with clients in jail. I mean, if you don't love the law after doing all that, it was fun to be in lives of real people. I said, oh gosh, this is so much fun. I'm going to love it. But law school was a little different than the actual practice of law.
What was your law school experience like?
I went to DU, and I walked into it, I am not afraid to try new things and go to places where I don't know anybody, but law school was the first time that I said, wow, I didn't make a mistake, but this is a little uncomfortable. I felt like everybody in my section, their parents were either lawyers or judges, or they knew a judge from their country club. I felt so out of place for the first time in my life. The thought of giving up never crossed my mind, but it was definitely, that first semester was rough. So I was fortunate. I ended up meeting my husband in law school. He sat in the very first row of every single one of my classes. He was always hunched over, very quiet, never spoke. But I kept noticing this guy in the first row. I was in the way back of the class. The farthest I could get from the professor, the better, because I really did not want to be called on. And so one day, I was like, okay, who is this guy? And I just started talking to him, and it was a break between classes. And turns out that he was also Hispanic. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm not alone. This is nice. And he started talking about the Latino Law Student Association. So he started dragging me to meetings, and he would drag me to the Hispanic Bar Association meetings, and he would just drag me everywhere. So we were like connected at the hip from then on. I'm probably 1 month into law school. I think there was one class I took without him, which was immigration. I said, I'm sorry, I got to do this. I came here to do immigration. But he was always my biggest cheerleader, still is. He's just always had my back, and I needed that. I just needed one person to tell me we're going to get through this, and that made the difference. I knew that's how I made it through law school.
Your professional life is still fairly intertwined with your husband's.
Extremely, yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when we were in our second year of law school, I can go backwards a little bit. After we found each other, we decided, we went through like that on-campus interviewing and, to pledge for diversity, and we interviewed at law firms, and it was a really kind of miserable experience. We did not do well. I didn't, at least. I bombed all my interviews. I just did not know what I was doing. We ended up spending that first summer in Mexico. We went through the University of New Mexico Law School and took classes in Mexico, in Guanajuato. They were in Spanish, and we were just talking about this the other day. I'm like, how did I take legal courses in Spanish? That's pretty cool. So my Spanish was not as good as it is now. And we did internships. I interned for an appellate judge in Mexico. He was with the prosecutor's office. So it was one of the best choices we ever made, not getting into a big summer clerkship or, law firm. So we had so much fun. And we kind of looked at each other and said, wait a minute, why are we getting brainwashed into big law? That's especially for me, that's not what I came here to do. So we had this conversation, and after our second year of law school, he says, I think we should open up our own law firm. And I said, sure, I will follow you anywhere. Let's do this. But you're the brains behind the operation. And so we graduated. We both ended up working for law firms, but about 2007, he decided, I'm going to do this. I'm going to open the law firm. So we did, I think it was July 2007, and December 2007, that's when we got married. So this has all happened before we were even officially married. This was in the works. I had a gut feeling that this was going to be the guy, and this is what was going to be my future. And now we're looking at 15 years later almost. We have a law firm.
And 3 kids.
And 3 kids, yes. Don't forget about those guys. We're pretty happy where we're at, having the largest immigration law firm, I think, in the state. He likes to say possibly in the region. I might agree with him. But it all came down to law school and the experiences we had. And when he said, I think we can do this on our own, I said, yeah, if we do immigration, he's fluently bilingual. We're going to be fine. We're going to be great. We stick to immigration, and then everything will fall in place after that. He started just by taking whatever came through the door, criminal, family law, immigration. He did it, and that got us off the ground. And then I joined the law firm probably a year after we got married. He could afford to pay me, so I joined him.
That's funny to family law attorneys.
Yeah, he still wasn't paid himself, but he could pay me. So
the only focus of the firm now is immigration.
Mainly. Right now we have, how many attorneys? We have 13 attorneys, of which 4 are focused on criminal defense, and we have 1.5, I say, focused on family law. So immigration connects or intercrosses with all of those areas so often that it's a lot easier if we just keep everything in-house.
And your firm is able to address those many needs that many of your clients may have.
Yes, it gets complicated really quick with the crimmigration issues and then family law. And there's so many, there's the young immigrants, the special immigrant juvenile status visa. It's just so much easier if we can handle that all in-house while we have a removal case going on. So it's nice to have that flexibility.
So you mentioned crimmigration, which I like that word. Talk a little bit about how that stuff kind of intersects, because I think that a lot of people don't necessarily know how immigration law works or what court it is even in, and then how that may intersect with, say, a county court or municipal court or federal court.
Sure. So typically in our office, clients come to us either because they're looking for assistance with immigration and then along the way get in trouble with the law, or need to divorce somebody or adopt somebody. So that's where that intersection comes in one way. Another way clients come to us is they've been picked up, they've been arrested on a state matter or a federal matter, and then they end up with an ICE hold. So then they end up in front of the immigration judge. Here in Colorado, we have 2 immigration courts, one in Denver, which is the non-detained cases. And I think right now we have 8 judges downtown. It's a pretty busy courthouse. And then we have the detention center, GEO, in Aurora. And there are 3 judges out there. So an immigration case, depending if you're detained or not, can take anywhere from a year to, I have some cases that started in 2009 that are still going. So while those cases are going, it depends on the administration. President Biden has reinstituted prosecutorial discretion. So the judges are more free to give continuances and work with us to get cases resolved. And prosecutors are more willing. The immigration prosecutors are more willing to give us some time and work with us. So that's been nice.
And I bet that prosecutorial discretion was also helpful for continuances during COVID, I would guess.
Well, during COVID, the downtown immigration court was pretty closed. They were closed from March 26th of 2020 until this summer. They opened up again. But it's been like, they're only doing, I would say, like 50% of the cases are going. They have this, I think they're operating like 50% staff. So only half of the judges are there 1 week and half of the judges are there for another week. So it's been difficult for everyone because I'm preparing cases, not sure if it's my week or not for my judge to go forward. So it's been kind of not a train wreck, but like a pileup. It's been still hard.
Well, and even given those setbacks, you still sound so passionate about immigration law. What is it that really drives you in that sector?
I look and, it's kind of, you smack yourself in the head going, duh, why didn't I think I was going to be an immigration attorney all along? I mean, just look at my family. My mom coming from South America, my dad's family coming from Russia. I mean, of course I'm an immigration attorney. But I really do credit it to my grandfather, my dad's father. His mom came to the U.S. when she was a teenager, about the turn of the century, early 1900s. She raised my grandfather in Philly as a single mom during the Depression. My grandfather might have had a high school education, but at a young age he was, taking care of his mom financially. And he ended up going on to be a very successful real estate developer in Richmond. He, to me, is the picture of the American dream. He was born here, but he started with nothing, and grew he was very well known in Richmond as a real estate developer. He had a passion. He wanted downtown Richmond he wanted to bring back the greatness of the city, despite, being the capital of the Confederacy once upon a time. He was into arts. He really enjoyed the arts, and he wanted to see the city thrive again. And just to see somebody work so hard and achieve so much with so very little, that's what I think of every single day, that I am helping every single client achieve their American dream. And that's what keeps me going every single day.
Well, you're giving me chills, first of all. But I also want to talk about this passion of yours as well, because it does come through in what you do. And I know that passion also drives you to give back and to be a leader in our legal community. And both you and your husband have taken a lot of leadership positions in our legal community. So how do you find the time? And secondly, what keeps you going with that?
Because there were no attorneys in either of our families, we're the first in each of our families. There's so much that it could have been a little easier. We might have done things different. I don't know. If we had a little bit more, I don't want to say support, but somebody leading the way for us, showing us this is how you do it. This is how you network. This is how you get your foot in the door. For some reason, my husband knows all these things. I think it's because he grew up in a restaurant business and he knows the service industry, and he's a people kind of person. He's a student of the human condition.
That's also why, by the way, I was surprised when you said he was so quiet in law school, because that's not the Arnulfo that I know.
Oh, he's very quiet. Yes. So I think I have always kind of followed in his footsteps, because he's got a very memorable name, and he's not bad looking, and he always wears a 3-piece suit, so everyone remembers him. Me, I'm just the quiet girl that stands next to him, and until maybe 2 years ago, nobody knew we were married. It was like the best kept secret in Denver. So he's had a lot of opportunities, and people mentor him, and through his mentors, I'm kind of a tag along and have benefited along the way. So I think because we've been so fortunate and blessed and successful, we want to make sure that we turn around and help everyone else behind us. We have 3 kids, and we're hoping that one day they take over the law firm for us. But in the meantime, we have a lot of other people to help get there too.
Well, I also want to throw some kudos your way as well, because I also know that you were one of the, if not the instigator behind this equity, diversity, inclusivity requirement that we have added to our continuing legal education requirements. So how did that come about?
So last year, because I was the past president of the Hispanic Bar Association, I was still a member of the CBA's President's Diversity Council. And after the death of Mr. Floyd, there was a lot of conversations in different groups across the legal community about what are we going to do. And one day, Justice Marquez called me and she said, "Christine, I've got some judges. They're doing things, but they're judges and they can only do so much. What the heck are the bar associations doing about these racial justice issues?" I said, "Funny, we have a diversity council meeting tonight or tomorrow, I think. I will find out." And so the diversity council meeting, it was actually Chaba's turn to lead the meeting. And so me and Annie went in there.
Annie Martinez.
Annie Martinez, yes. And she raised the topic, and then I kind of took over the meeting. I said, "Guys, we got to do something. Justice Marquez just, told me, and we're not doing anything. What are we doing?" And so we had a great conversation. I think it was a really important conversation to get all the bar leaders together. We've always had a good relationship, but it really, there was a lot of solidarity after that meeting, and it has carried forward, even this year. It's continuing. I'm really glad to see that it hasn't waned. And it's just really great for the whole legal community when we're all working together. But out of that first meeting, I think it was Kevin McReynolds who mentioned, and he was the current DBA president at the time, in California, where I'm also licensed, they have a EDI rule. So why can't Colorado think about it? And Lawrence Gendelman, who was the president of the LGBT bar at the time, and Hedel Doshi, who was the president of SABA, they both commented, I think there's a judge that might have been working on this. And so we all kind of split up and we did some homework and figured out, okay, we got to do, if this is already in existence, how do we push it along? And so, yes, there was something in the works. The CLE, Supreme Court CLE committee had worked on it a few years ago.
For the listeners, can you just describe what is the requirement and what is that going to be going forward?
Sure. So it actually goes into effect in 2023, but you can still get your credit now, starting now. Programs are already accredited. And basically what we did was, of the 7 ethics CLEs, 2 of them are now dedicated to EDI. So we didn't increase the number. We didn't change anything other than splitting up ethics. It's now redefined as professional responsibility instead of ethics. And within that, you have to do 2 EDI CLE credits for every 3 reporting years.
I personally really enjoy hearing about the solidarity that you're talking about and everybody just kind of banding together, because I agree with you. I was president of the Asian bar maybe 3-4 years ago. And that was one of the first years, I believe, maybe the second year, that the President's Diversity Council was convened, I guess, when it was created. And it's really great and at that point it was more, letting people know what we were doing. Maybe we could consolidate some efforts for certain types of events that we were doing. It really hadn't gone to this next level that you're describing of this really, the support system, more or less. And I've heard that echo through the Asian bar as well. This past year and a half, 2 years have been just instrumental. And the great thing that's come out of, for example, Stop Asian Hate has been the solidarity and the support from the community members and from the legal community.
Yep, that's exactly the example I was thinking of. I would say when I was president, yes, we would co-sponsor events, and yes, we showed up for each other, but it is not to the level it is now. We actually are like a force. It is, we are in solidarity for real. And it's pretty awesome because I've always said that there's strength in numbers. One group can champion one issue for your community, but it means so much more when everybody supports you. And I think everything that's been going on it's hard and it's traumatic to watch. And, I have a hard time. I just can't. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but I just don't know why people harm other human beings. And so I think what has been awesome about what we've done here in Colorado is that we are having conversations, we're reaching out and helping each other, and we understand, or we're trying to understand what's going on. And I think that's powerful.
So given this time of solidarity and collaboration, where do you see you fitting in the future, and what do you have on your plate in the future?
For me right now, what I'm focused a lot on is diversity on the bench in Colorado. How do we build pipelines for diverse applicants to make it on the bench? How do we get diverse applicants through the judicial nomination commissions? How do we get them on the short list? How do we get them in front of the governor? How do we get them on the bench? How do we keep them on the bench? And so I was pretty excited, pretty honored to be asked to take on the co-chair position for the CJI's Diversity on the Bench initiative and get that moving this year. The CBA and CJI agreed to continue the program for another 2 years.
Christine, we know that with your passion and all the other things that you've accomplished, you don't necessarily need a big plan to make those things happen. So we know that you'll be on the forefront of that. And we're so thankful that you took the time to spend with us today, sharing your story and your very unique path that you've taken. We've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Our Voices. For more information on today's guest, or to get involved, please check out the CBA podcast page at cobar.org/podcast. That's cobar.org/podcast. This podcast series was created by members of the Colorado and Denver Bar Associations. Our Voices is a collaborative effort of the EDI Joint Steering Committee messaging team, including Mallory Revel, Linda Moss, Bonnie Schreiner, Mallory Hasbrook, Mo Watson, Mario Trimble, Courtney Holm, and Emmy Lopez, with our CBA Communications Team Director, Heather Fulton. Our recording engineer is Rick Ponteleone of Lionsbridge Recording. Our producer and editor is Courtney Holm, with theme and introduction by Mario Trimble. This podcast is made possible because of the support of the Colorado and Denver Bar Associations. On behalf of all of us, thanks for listening to Our Voices.